Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us today. My name is Cecile Fruin. I'm the Director for Regional Integration in South Asia for the World Bank. Welcome to our third online conversation of our One South Asia series, which has the intent of spurring a debate on topics of regional cooperation and integration in South Asia. Gender equity and empowerment is a key plank of our South Asia regional integration, cooperation, engagement strategy. We strive to ensure that investments in regional connectivity, human development, and climate adaptation are informed by and respond to the needs of women. And this includes women entrepreneurs, traders, and investors. And yet we know that women entrepreneurs in South Asia face significant challenges, as reflected in these numbers. Only 18% of all firms in South Asia are owned by women, and this is by far the lowest rate in the world. And even a smaller number of these women engage in cross-border trade. There's a 26% gender gap in mobile access, an 11% gender gap in access to finance. And if we could fix these gaps in entrepreneurship and employment, we could be adding 25% to economic growth. So women have tremendous power. And yet we know that the challenges that women have been facing have only been exacerbated by the pandemic. Women are disproportionately affected by and vulnerable to the disruptions caused by COVID. We have seen that many businesses have not survived and women-owned businesses have had to close. At the same time, as we will hear in today's discussion, the pandemic is also creating new opportunities for women entrepreneurs and accelerating the growth of some of these businesses. New trends in global trade, especially in the rise in services, global value chains, and the digital economy, are opening up important economic opportunities for women. Here with us today, we have an amazing panel of women entrepreneurs, and they'll be sharing their experiences of growing their businesses domestically and regionally, accessing finance, and using digital technology. Let me introduce them briefly. Sari Chahal is the CEO of She Rose India. It's the largest social networking and online community for more than 22 million women in India and abroad. Maheen Adamji is the CEO of Dot and Line. It's a Pakistani startup offering online math and literacy tutoring. Ayanti Guru Singhe is the managing director of Cord360.com, an e-commerce B2B trading platform based out of Sri Lanka. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before we kick off our conversation, we are thrilled to be joined by the World Bank Group's Managing Director and Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Anshula Kant. She has had an illustrious career in banking in India before joining the World Bank Group, and she has supported women entrepreneurship in the region. Anshula, over to you.
Thank you, Cecile, for inviting me to join you in this webinar today. COVID-19 is a watershed moment for the entire world as it has triggered a global health crisis with an enormous human toll and an economic crisis that has substantially dented growth prospects for the next decade. In 2020, the global economy contracted by 4.3%. It is expected to recover by about 4% in 2021, but the recovery remains fragile. The pandemic could push nearly 120 million more people into poverty, and 60% of them are likely to be in South Asia. All over the world, we are seeing the massive impact the coronavirus crisis is having on small and medium sized businesses, with women led businesses among the hardest hit. Women shoulder the lion's share of the care burden for the elderly, for the at risk family members, and children. Moreover, women led SMEs are more at risk as they often operate in service and trade sectors and typically in lower margin industries. In the economic turmoil created by the COVID 19 pandemic, women entrepreneurs need substantial support to pivot their business models and be able to incorporate the advances in digital marketing, e commerce, digital payment systems, and web based logistics. In addition to skills training, advice, and networks, there is an overwhelming need for women entrepreneurs for direct financial support. Even before the pandemic hit, developing countries were losing nearly $48 trillion in wealth because of lifetime earnings gap, between women and men. The pandemic has been exacerbating the gaps, and there is a dire need for support for working women in developing countries. At the World Bank Group, we have stepped up our response to help businesses and entrepreneurs. We have fast tracked a $14 billion package to help companies and countries sustain economies and protect jobs. Of this, the International Finance Corporation is providing $8 billion to support private companies and their employees. Much of this funding is helping micro, small, and medium sized businesses, which are major sources of job creation in developing economies. We are paying special attention to the pandemic's different impact on men and women to ensure a gender responsive and resilient recovery.
We will be hearing more from Manjula later on her personal experiences of supporting women entrepreneurs in India, and importantly on the need to shift the perception gap. So before we dig into our conversation, two reminders. First, you can post your questions on our event page and we'll try to address as many as possible. Also, you'll see that we have posted a poll on the event page. Please do take it. We've already had more than 1,800 people have already responded. And with your responses, we'll be revealing the results at the end of today's event. So without further ado, let me now turn to the panelists. And I have one question for all of them to start our conversation. I'd like each of you, please, to tell us a little bit more about your business and what has been the impact of the pandemic on your organization. I'm going to start with you, Mahi.
Thank you so much, Cecile, and it's wonderful to be here today. Hi, I'm Maheen. I'm the CEO of Dot and Nine. Dot and Nine is an online tutoring platform with proprietary step-by-step learning programs in English, Math, and Urdu for the K-10 market. These programs are taught through a network of teacher partners who are Dot and Nine's micro-franchise partners across the region. The pandemic, right at the outset, has been a catalyst for Dot and Nine, pushing forward our 3-year plan to just 6 months. We went from onboarding all of our teacher partners across the globe. Initially, it was done through face-to-face trainings, mailing our guides, resources to them, and setting up home-based learning centers. All of that was digitized. We now completely roll out a digital end-to-end online teacher training. We relaunched a seamless matching system for our students and teachers. We introduced new quality control mechanisms for our online classes. All of this was done pretty quickly right at the outset of the pandemic. So whereas just at the outset, Dot and Nine has accelerated its start in the digital sphere, online tutoring, taking us global as well, taking us beyond Pakistan. There are significant and very serious challenges facing our women teacher partners, our micro franchise partners, and us as a company. Which falls back to today's topic. I just wanted to share one statistic and put that out there. In Pakistan, we often talk about the accelerated growth of our 3G and 4G users. We peg it at around 85 to 90 million today. But one must realize that only 27% today of those users are women. So taking women online is still a very, very serious impediment, hindrance, and it's not really a possibility in Pakistan today. Just last week, I was looking through women who were applying to us on an online portal, and we automatically reject any male applicants. And I had this young woman who reached out and said, I've been applying and I keep getting rejected. And when we checked back, she was applying through her husband's account. And we asked her, we said, you can't apply through a male account, you need to apply through a female account. And she said, I don't have my own email address, I don't have my own bank account. She didn't have her own Facebook page. So that's a reality that we contend with on a daily basis. And that's something that we at Dot and Nine are working very hard towards, giving women access to finance, access to their own bank accounts, access to the means through which they can set up a franchise center of their own and start earning from the comfort of their home.
Thank you, Maheen. Ayanti, I'll turn to you now. Tell us about your business and how you've fared in the pandemic.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, thank you for World Bank team as well for giving me the opportunity to share on some of the experience that we faced during the pandemic. So I represent, I'm the CEO and the founder of Cord360.com. It's an online B2B platform connecting buyers and sellers across the board. So during pandemic, Cord360, actually I started Cord360 also because we realized for the exporters, for globally for exports that needs that connection, it was not easy to always travel for exhibitions because of the cost involved. So we wanted to encourage the SMEs and the women entrepreneurs to find a mode of trading. So that's why Cord360 platform was started by me. So Cord360 connects over 190 countries and there are online buyers and sellers to trade. People could advertise in 15 different languages, over 40 industries can be traded across the platform. So during pandemic, it was initially very difficult for us to kind of penetrate into people and to share about Cord360 because a lot of people, especially in Sri Lanka, was not used to online platforms. So that itself was a struggle for us. But, and also the people did, because the routers, the devices that were at home were used by the children for their online classes. So for all the women, all the ladies, their phones were all occupied, the Wi-Fi devices were occupied for online work. So it was not easy for people to find time to log in and to peruse, to go through the platform. So that was a great struggle for us, encouraging. So we kind of worked also establishing centers where they could come and use the facility. But then also being women, mothers being at home, that was not easy at all. And even for parents, even for fathers. So Cord360 is, it's for all SMEs and all exporters. So even for all traders found it difficult, especially at the SME sector with the availability of linking, because children needed from morning 8 to afternoon about 2 o'clock they were there, and after that children still continue to use the Wi-Fi facility for homework. So it was tough for men, and it was worse, I would say, for women entrepreneurs. It was really bad. And we also have in our platform, we have a special channel for women called Sela, the brand is, where we kind of handhold them and not only just connect business, but we also help women entrepreneurs to develop their product, to understand the product, understand international market. We provide a lot of training. But even that was difficult because for women could not leave their houses because they were all stranded by not only with lockdowns, but having children at home full time. And those who didn't have domestic help had to stay at home. So it was a struggle for the business to pick up. But we managed other ways as well to work things out, which I will share, I think, during the latter part of the opportunities during the webinar. But it was a struggle, COVID hitting. The work that we were doing was a struggle, especially being a lady. And also I found it difficult to pick up the business, access to finance. There were a lot of issues, as well as for other women, ladies who were working in the platform, who want to engage in trading and to lift their business. They've all struggled. So it was a struggle, but we've all found ways also to overcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ayanti. Sari, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sairi. I founded a women-only social network called Shiros, which is basically built as a community platform for women. It's a safe space to begin with. If I was to give you a little more context, 70% of internet users in India are men, and obviously women are still making it, but a fast growing part of the base in India. So Shiro's offers, identity to first-time internet users. This is their version of LinkedIn and Gmail. It's a peer-to-peer space. There's a lot of support around well-being. There's a free counseling helpline. There's legal advice, relationship advice, career advice, all in one place. And then women are able to find work and entrepreneurship all through the platform. And now we're beginning to offer credit as well. So at the crux of our work is a very simple assumption that uh, internet's the greatest enabler in all our lives, and it should also do more for women. We are also the country with one of the biggest gender gaps in the world. So we're just trying to use women's internet for women's progress. We're about 22 million women across our network. And couple of things happened when the pandemic struck. So as a company, we've evangelized a couple of things. One is remote work. We've always said remote work is great because it drives inclusion. It takes work where women are. Not all women are in tier one India. And secondly, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the only way to really build a strong economic contribution of women to the overall growth of the country. And of course, I think we saw both of these picked up in the pandemic. Need for second incomes, the need for making a living. Obviously, the economy slowed down, so digital entrepreneurship took off, and everybody, I think, online today is a creator, is an influencer, is a micro entrepreneur, is a solopreneur. And second, of course, we saw remote work uh, really get picked up. Just to give you some examples, uh, so when I started the company, there were about 10 million women online. And today in India, I think about 300 million women online. So that's the growth. But the adoption numbers were always low. Uh, and as soon as COVID happened, we saw that we didn't have to tell people what remote work is anymore. And it saw companies sort of being more open to it. And secondly, I think uh, the 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 huge downside of the pandemic was a rise in domestic violence, something that gets brushed under the carpet. A lot more women were using our helpline. It's a counseling helpline. Over 2 million women have used it before that, but the pandemic saw that a lot more women were using the helpline. We had to extend a lot more support. Obviously, overall levels of anxiety were through the roof. So it was a mixed bag, but I think uh, because a lot of work has gone in building what has become the India digital stack, UPI payments, penetration of mobile phones, penetration of data, very cheap data. I think that really helped. A lot of groundwork that was already in place came in very handy for everyone. But obviously, it was an anxious period. But I think what it has done is it has induced a huge new level of digital adoption. We saw when we went into the lockdown, we were 15, 16 million women. And by the time, we were, 3, 4 months down the line, we were 20, 22 million women. So clearly, large number of women started using everything they had access to. Of course, a lot of women are still, not on the network. A lot of women are still, using their husband's mobile phones. That's a long journey in another story.
Great. Thank you so much, Sairi. Maheen, I'm going to turn back to you. So what we've seen is that the pandemic has really been a test of leadership for business leaders in particular. And you had to really pivot your business overnight. Can you tell us how you tapped these new opportunities and made the most of it?
Thank you, Cecile. So I think it was a test in leadership. We had to relearn the way we were doing things in the company. The first thing that I would like to highlight is we took a completely honest and empathetic approach, and we started with the internal team. So we had deeply honest conversations with our team members, which started off with what our cash runway looks like, what our projections look like, the uncertainties that we had to prepare for. And we had a certain buy-in from the entire team where we would face whatever challenges came our way. And if you take yourself back to March, we as a world still did not know how long the coronavirus was. We still thought, it could be a month, it could be 2 months. There was no way in predicting that we would be in this situation a year from now. But we took a very honest approach with the team. Once we had that buy-in, I think the empathy kicked in, where we decided, and for the first time, we sat down with each and every single member of our team. There was anxiety in some of the team members. There were single parent households, new parents who were worried about their job security. So there was just kind of this view of keeping the team together, speaking to them one on one. My partner and I spent almost 2 days in office having those one on one conversations, making sure that everybody was in the right frame of mind mentally to take dot and line forward. Um, the next thing that we did, I think, on our part was to show incredible agility and then decisiveness. So the plans that we put in motion weren't uh, plans for a quarter or for 2 months. We took decisions that were to have long-term repercussions on the way that we ran dot and line, redesigning, re-implementing, reconfiguring our algorithms, retraining 200 teacher partners to take them online, relaunching ourselves entirely in 2 weeks. And this agility, I think, was, and here it started with the team that with the pay cuts, with the uncertainty, were working double because we were changing everything. All the way, it ran all the way through to, you have to remember, all of our micro franchise centers were home-based physical centers. So students were visiting teacher partner homes for classes, and all of them over the course of 2 weeks were going online. So there was incredible agility that we saw from women who were working for Dot and Line as teacher partners from their homes. How quickly they adapted, how quickly they took these online trainings, and how they retrained themselves and relaunched themselves online. So that agility and decisiveness really paid forward, and we were able to take ourselves there. So I think as a test of leadership, all of those things, the honesty, the empathy really came into, and paid rewards forward.
Thank you, Maheen. Such an inspiring story. Sairi, I'm going to turn to you. You talked about the internet and it being an equalizer and really a game changer, mostly in the midst of a pandemic. Tell us if you think that the internet can actually be a level playing field, it can create a level playing field for women, and if it can do so cross borders, because what we're really interested in hearing also is what are the opportunities to go regional and how the internet can help.
Absolutely. So I have to confess that I am an internet child, and the reason I say so, I grew up in small town India, and the only real access to knowledge, entertainment, information, socializing was books, right? And of course, very different time, and I have been lucky to witness, I think, literally the growth of Indian internet from '99. I built my first startup in '99. I was still in college. Very different world, and here we are, I think, in the middle of very, very ripe opportunities. And the fact remains, there are some very hard problems we cannot solve as entrepreneurs. We cannot solve a lot of social issues, we cannot solve cultural issues, at least not immediately. These are very so women still face social barriers, they still face, safety is a big issue, right? So if you live in a small town, the fact that you have to get out of your house, then a male has to accompany you, or public transport is an issue. But when you're online and you're on a mobile device, one, it's a personal device, it's not your husband's device, it's your device. It just changes the game because you start becoming a person. And I think that's really valuable in a country like India, where I think all women feel something universal, which is lack of personal space, lack of space to grow, lack of space for their own dreams. And I think internet is that playground, and it's already sort of proving that. And of course, some of the best wealth creation opportunities globally are now online. I mean, look at the cap tables of Fortune 500 companies. They're moving from manufacturing to big tech. And of course, that transition has already happened. What we need to do is we need to bring more and more women into the story. And that can only happen when consumers adopt consumer tech products, so it doesn't happen only with policy. It doesn't happen when government tries it. It happens when consumers start using cool products they like, but in fact there's an impact of those products and those platforms. So that's our core philosophy. And the great thing is, it is not bound by geographies. It's not thankfully under the purview of governments, and it doesn't come under a lot of regulation. So what we've seen is, so as a company, we have users from 195 countries, but for example, we are also available in many languages. And when we launched Bangla, which is mostly for Indian users, we saw that Bangladesh actually became one of our biggest bases outside of India, and that happened really, really quickly over a period of 3 months. And what we realized is, hey, there is a certain universal aspiration that women in the region have. They all want safe experience of the internet. They all want to grow their ambition. They want to express themselves freely, and of course, they want access to opportunities. And I believe that internet is a huge enabler. It's also universal. So we really live by that principle, and we're seeing that play out in many ways. Whether women becoming micro entrepreneurs. India is expected to have 20 million women who will become micro entrepreneurs in the next 2 to 3 years, and that wouldn't be possible if 300 million women hadn't adopted internet for the first time in the last 3 4 years. So it's clearly sort of playing out for sure. It's not absolutely adequate or perfect, but it's pretty optimal, I would say.
Thanks, Sairi. Ayanti, you run a B2B business, so your job is connecting firms across borders. Most of the firms that you connect with today are actually not in the region. So I'd be interested in knowing what the opportunities have been during this pandemic and maybe in the future in connecting firms in Sri Lanka with other firms in South Asia.
So the story is a little different because yes, on the B2B platform, we have all the Western countries involved with us, then Australia and the West. We do market into those regions. And we also was doing this marketing strategy with the government as well through the embassy network. But during the COVID, something that interestingly happened was we managed to penetrate also into the region because it was COVID was an international, it's a global issue. Pandemic was a global issue, but when things got stuck because of COVID, one of the first things that was affected was trade, and people, the income, import export both stopped. And we managed to use our contacts in the region, especially India, because we bring down import, export, both happen and large scale between Sri Lanka and India. So we were able to tap into our regional contacts with India. So it so happened that we had time, and we actually established a very good partnership with a lady. She's Aparna, and Aparna Mishra, and she also ran a chamber, and she was also struggling.
So, Ayanti, we're not hearing you well. We're having a connection problem, Ayanti. So we'll come back to you. All right. Okay, so let me
look at us.
Oh, you're back. You're back, Ayanti. Okay.
So can I continue? Or?
Yes. We lost you for a moment, but you're back.
Right. Sorry. So just to pick up is that because of the pandemic, we started to work closely with our neighboring country, India, and with India, we established strong partnerships we sat down and we re-looked at how we could work these details out with the regional partners we had. So we partnered with a lady called Aparna and Aparna Mishra. She ran in the Uttar Pradesh chamber network and supporting the women. So the trading picked well enough that the government actually invited her to do like a presentation for the district or the province of Uttar Pradesh. And we also signed an MOU. So this was a very good opportunity that in midst of difficulties, in midst of trade issues that we developed within the region. And also because of, we also had to relook at our strategies, relook at how we are going to go through this situation. And we even partnered with some of the banks in Sri Lanka. And they also actually they were banks and all looking at channels to support exporters to go beyond borders. So they used Core 360. We were invited by 2 big banks in Sri Lanka, and we partnered with them. And so they onboarded all their exporters into our platform, and numbers increased as a result. And then and trade picked up again. So just to tell back again is in India and within Pakistan, we established partnerships. India was very strong. And even in end of February or beginning of March, we're supposed to have an online exhibition with the Indian craft, the artist in Uttar Pradesh, so which will be hosted on our platform. So we discussed difficulties that we all go through. We discussed how we can package international products across the 2 countries. And we also supported women entrepreneurs, in particularly how to trade between Indian borders and Sri Lanka. There were FTAs, but people didn't know what FTAs even meant at being at SME level. So we had to kind of have forums to teach what and to take the benefit out of it. So trade was not easy, teaching trade, but we together with our partners overseas, we kind of did some training, and things did pick up amidst of COVID, going beyond borders, beyond our own borders to India, as well as we did a few trade deals with Pakistan. And if I were to tell you, come back to your question, why is it slow within the region? Because we capture international countries faster than our own region. I think it is the issue of trust and the barrier, non-trade barriers that is affecting strongly within the region. So why not other countries? EU has their own restrictions, but EU restrictions are very clear. It's listed down, and you can go and check. The rules are clear. So people involved in these trading, they know, and once they study, it remains. But within the region, trading is very difficult because of non-trade barriers mainly. And also rules change overnight, restrictions do change, even though we have FTAs, trading does not happen sometimes as per the FTA. If a country has too much excessive products coming in, most of these countries within our region countries, the borders, they would make it difficult for the shipment to go in. Sri Lanka had this issue with a strawberry exporter. And so our region rules don't strongly remain as rules and conditions. They keep changing, and border restrictions do affect. So people prefer to trade outside the SAARC region than within the region. So this is, I see, one main barrier.
Thanks a lot. And I think really illustrating, the uncertainty and the lack of transparency in the rules is an important point. Maheen, I'm going to turn to you and we're going to shift topics a little bit, but a key determinant of success in women-led businesses is actually the support they get, the knowledge they receive, the training, the mentoring. And you've had, I think, positive experience with mentoring, including from the region. We'd love to hear that.
Absolutely, Cecile. So picking up from my auntie's point, she made a very important point of our neighbors and our regional neighbors. And some borders are impenetrable in terms of regional policy, foreign policy, age-old disputes. But the internet is a democratizing factor, and it's kind of it breaks down barriers where borders are, very strongly drawn in terms of physical borders. The internet blurs those boundaries. And for us, that example would be India. India, as the audience may know today, Pakistan is still a nascent economy when it comes to our digital economy. India is at least 8 years ahead of us. So what they've done, what we're doing today, they've done 5 years, 6 years ahead. And as entrepreneurs, we unabashedly look towards CEOs and entrepreneurs in India. And we did reach out for help to other education technology companies that had done what we're doing today better and earlier than we had. And the response has been phenomenal. I mean, we had CEOs and CTOs of those companies not just share knowledge and experiences so we wouldn't make the same mistakes, but right down to sharing contracts, wireframes, connecting us with their team members, showing us how they did things. Because you have to remember, in terms of the how the demography, the population, a lot of the culture and habits are still the same when you look at India or Bangladesh or Afghanistan. So we learned a lot, and right from the outset. And it actually floors me that we have no trade, we have limited communication with India, but and the distrust that Ayanti spoke about, I think the digital economy maybe at some level supersedes that. So that's been a very recent example where some Indian entrepreneurs turned into mentors for us.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think what you illustrate also is the important people to people connection, right? The environment may not always be favorable to trading or to doing business, but certainly supporting each other and learning from each other at that level is so important. Ayanti, I'm going back to you. So you've played, as a woman in trade, you do play a leadership role in the region, and you've been very involved with the SARC Chamber Women Entrepreneurship Council. So can you tell us how you see this outfit and other regional institutions supporting women entrepreneurs and traders in the region?
So yeah, I think when I talk of my involvement within the SARC, there are barriers. Of course, the digital economy bypasses them, but when it comes to trading of goods and services, there are many barriers that hinder particularly trade. So my platform, even though it's a digital platform, end of the day, when a deal connects, it's about coming back to physical trading that has to take place. So all the non-trade barriers do affect, but I must say, as entrepreneurs, it is time to enhance trade, to build harmony within the region, and to sort some of the issues we have. Under the SARC Women's Chamber, SWEC, in February 2020, we met in Dubai to discuss how we can increase trade opportunities within our region. And a common thought was, because of the barriers that we have, it is time that as friends and sisters, we need to continue to support each chamber by sharing our experience and opportunities available despite the barriers. Because most of these barriers also can overcome when you have friends within the region. Sometimes when trading gets stuck and one of our members gives us a call, we would connect the chamber in the region so they're able to help and support the trading to pass by smoothly. So our connectivity within the region added a lot of value. But unfortunately, so we realized this importance, we all discussed the same issue, but unfortunately COVID hit and created a vacuum. But we kept our dialogues with the hope of strengthening value. And something interesting that also happened was it was helpful during COVID. We shared information and discussed how our neighboring economies supported women entrepreneurs. Like in India, Nepal, Bangladesh, we all discussed matters which help our chambers to better negotiate with banks and our government. So this was something exchanging not only trade, but not only opportunities, but exchanging knowledge and experience and to know what happens within the neighboring economy really helped all of us to support a large network of women. And most of us are connected beyond our SAC chambers and with other associations within the region and have developed great friendships. But to help large group of women entrepreneurs in the region, it is important to formally connect as a regional body. This because to get a job done for me personally or for my job or for Code 360, my company, I do have friends in the network. With one call, my friends in the region would always help us. But to create a voice as women within the region and to discuss and everyone to come together, that will help a lot of women. I think it's very important to have regional presence and a regional body being created. Even for today's webinar, when I shared with all my sisters in the region, they all expressed great enthusiasm to join and to hear the speakers today. Indeed, we need new thinking and support to strengthen our linkages to leapfrog barriers and to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ayanti, for that call for action and coordinated approach. So just a reminder to our audience, you can be posting questions and we're going to start turning to the audience questions very shortly. And before I do so, I'm going to turn back to Sairi. So as we've seen through the conversation, it is difficult for businesses and women-owned businesses to trade across borders in South Asia. And your business is not about trade, it's about connecting through platforms, online platforms, and you've had some success. So we'd like to hear from you on that.
Right. So I think some of the maximum amount of value creation we have seen in recent times has been on platforms. I mean, Apple is one of the largest companies in the world, so is Facebook. But having said that, I think there is a huge opportunity for I think South Asia to treat platforms in a more innovative way. I think we're still we're still behind in a lot of GDP metrics, social index, and of course cultural barriers. And here's an opportunity to turn the problem on its head and say, hey, we're going to use a lot of tech, but we're going to use it to not just sell advertising, but we're going to use it to solve the problems that we have here, whether it is access to healthcare, access to mental health, access to peer support, mentorship, but also hard political problems like employment and entrepreneurship. So at Shiro's, while we are a social platform, we are a social network, we have an equal opportunity to turn on the advertising cap and say, hey, like, let's just open it out and let's go. But we're very cognizant of the country we are. We're very cognizant of the opportunity we have and the kind of impact we can generate. So I look at it as an opportunity to one, create many more entrepreneurs thanks to the platform. And second is, of course, curating a lot of resources that are valuable. So these resources can be as simple as access to mentorship, and we all know entrepreneurship grows when people have role models. Silicon Valley is huge because everybody has a big role model, and those networks are open. We can all pick up the call. Mahin can pick up the phone and speak to a founder in India. It just changes everything. So we are very cognizant of the opportunity we have, and we are trying to build a lot of our contextual outcomes here. So entrepreneurship, access to capital, employment, access to health, access to safe experience of the internet. We all know that trolling, spam, abuse is a huge internet problem, and also keeps women away, gives patriarchal families more reason to keep those phones away from women. And we want to break that. And we're already breaking that. And we found some way out. So we're very cognizant of some of the universal connected points. And the truth is, these models have been illustrated before. For a Unilever, that's a huge company. There is an Amul which was built with a very huge social context. For a Zara, there is a Fab India. So there is an opportunity to create region-specific business models that are equally scalable, equally profitable, equally tech-driven, and very, very high impact. And I think that's when we would have done something good out of what we have at hand.
Thank you. Maheen, back to you. So we have seen some promising methods for advancing women entrepreneurship overall at the regional level, and we've illustrated some of that in the conversation. What policy recommendations do you think can be taken up at the regional level? What would support you and other women entrepreneurs?
So, Cecile, we've spoken about a whole host of policy changes, and a lot of us have spoken about access to finance, equal pay policy, maternity leave policies that should be embedded, childcare in offices, so technical skills training, women education. But I think at a very, very personal level, really there needs to be a change in how our the values and the norms in our society. So young girls growing up today need role models. They need to see that it's possible, that entrepreneurship is a possible career choice, it's a possible path that they can take. Just in terms of, I growing up didn't have that. I came from a deeply conservative household. There was marriage or home, right? But my daughter today, it's wonderful that she sees the possibility having a working mother. She sees that that is a possible path, that should she choose that path, it's a possibility for her. So I think at a regional level, we need to highlight, and Ayanti touched on these regional forums, and there are a lot of these little and big groups of women coming together, showing young girls and also each other that it's possible. You asked me at a personal level what works. Juggling a job, as a CEO and two children. What works for me is looking at other women doing it and just sharing notes. Even if even if something that works for them doesn't work for me, it's that feeling of, they're doing it too, and I'm not alone here. And those connections are so important today, and the internet makes that possible. Those forums, those groups, making those that a reality, that women like me who are mothers, who are CEOs, who are working women, see the possibility of a future in entrepreneurship as well. So I think I wanted to stress that. The other bit, just really quickly at a regional level, I know a lot of government bodies also look at school curriculum. And for me, just tying back to dotted line and education, it's really important to give those role models in public school textbooks, in the books that our kids read in school. So a young Pakistani girl should be able to read about the first female fighter pilot in Pakistan, or Samina Beg, who climbed Mount Everest, and know that it's possible, that there is a female banker that's earning X amount and she's able to have a family and able to have a career. And if they see that growing up, so I don't think it's, you change policy, but a 30-something-year-old may not decide to become an entrepreneur, but a young girl growing up with normalizing work might change things in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, the really important role of role models in inspiring the future generation. So we have some audience questions, and I'm going to turn to one that is very connected to the topic we just discussed, which is also on policy. And this is really related to the current crisis. So governments right now are designing COVID recovery plans to support businesses to make sure that they survive and can recover from this crisis. And yet many of these policies are elaborated by men and not sufficiently gender informed. So the question is, how can women entrepreneurs engage with the state and civil society to limit the damage caused by the pandemic and make sure that these policies are responsive to what women need? Sari, can I start with you maybe on this one?
A great question because and something I have spoken about a lot of times. So I do think that policy making is overly saturated uh, by a lot of patriarchal biases. They may not be strongly enforced, but there are biases in the system. One, we definitely need more women in the system, but I think we also need more women in the political system, the system that creates the buy-in, creates the budgetary spends and all of that. There has been some effort in that direction, where, both with bills in the parliament in India, and of course, certain programs which support young women getting into political careers very early on. Uh, but at the same time, I think it is important to look at it from a structural angle. So, for example, if I may give you an example of India, so we have a Ministry of Women and Child, but most of the job that ministry does is uh, women's health, child mortality rates, vaccinations, maybe daycare centers. That's great. And then we have a Ministry of Commerce, and that looks at everything in trade and investments and so on and so forth. So when I talk about, let's say, women in workforce or women in skilling, or when I talk about women's access to, uh, it becomes a super tiny subset of everything else at a larger policy level, and which basically means an important issue which has a huge opportunity to make a GDP impact is getting a very small box in the entire puzzle. And we do think that when government attention, policymaker attention, multilateral attention becomes centrally focused on these not only initiatives but also design of institutions, and of course I think that can bring about a radical change. And we've seen that both in Scandinavia, the feminist foreign policies made a huge difference. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in countries like Estonia, and that changes a lot of dynamics. So we do need more women's participation across political structures, because policy and politics impacts economics in a rather major way.
Great, thank you. And Ayanti, I wonder if you want to add something on this particular question, since you do dabble a bit in policy through the work you do.
Yeah, just to add is, I think during COVID, what I saw mainly was policies were adjusted in general, because it was given for all the SMEs, all governments supported the SME sectors, and the loans are structured for general. So on that, it was, I did not hear any particular special loans that was created for women. And even during our discussions within the region, we've discussed how we could raise a voice. So one thing is, it's important for like a chamber network for women to raise a voice. It has to be a group of women associations that was able to raise. But in Sri Lanka, we did that, and we kind of raised our voice. We gave our opinion and support. But this support was, government did support, but it was not necessarily for women. And so when this general loan was given, I mean, access to finance then becomes an issue, because when a loan is given, maybe, so you focus on giving this loan to your husband or the main applicant. So the spouse, so he would take the loan and run. And if you had like a sewing business going, most of them were lost. They did not have access to finance. So, I mean, something common right across when things are generalized, it's about access to finance. And I think just like Sari said, we have ministries for women and children, but all those ministries would always focus on taking care of the general mother and child issues. But when it comes to trade decisions, either the teams that are there, they are not geared to think into the lines of trade. and trade and finance, business, connectivity happens to the main ministries. So they do not. So we did raise our voice. We received support, but it was generous support. Even in the region, that's why I kept saying for us to raise a voice, it's very important. Even as a region, we come together and at least to, if the regional organizations within our region, if they were strong, they could have taken the initiative to write a letter to say, so then all countries, at least across the region, you could have seen or support, or if India did, Sri Lanka can say, okay, India did, so why not we? We did not have that regional support coming on board, especially for women. So that's something, I think that's a vacuum that we lack to come up. And women need this support in the region because of our cultural barriers as well. So we really missed on.
Thank you. Thank you, Ayanti. Question for you, Maheen. What does it take to tap it into a regional market? And you were thinking of expanding your business into Afghanistan. What are the challenges and opportunities?
For us, Cecile, it's been a very organic push into the regional market to start off with. So, like I said right at the outset, what was a 3-year dotted line plan became something possible in 6 months. Because with the COVID pandemic, we had a lot of women who are at home taking care of their children, or being responsible for the elderly, or taking care of their domestic responsibilities. They had time to spare, and they looked at the gig economy, or whether it's telehealth or telemedicine or education, online tutoring, as a means to propel themselves into the workforce, and at least get a start. So for us, we had organically applications coming in globally, asking us to open doors for them. And we really had no excuse to say, we can't at this point, because we had gone online with our tutoring model. And that was transformational. So we had women coming in, and that got us thinking strategically in terms of the business plan as to how do we see dotted line's future. And so in Pakistan, more than 70% of educated women do not work. And that reality, when you look at regionally, kind of mirrors, specifically in volatile countries, whether it's Afghanistan or, Bangladesh. So it's important, it became important for us in the longer term to look at the region and see a market there of women who could potentially be a part of dotted line's network.
Thank you. And we have a very similar question for you, Sairi. Let me just find it here. Your business has grown organically in certain overseas market. Do you have a deliberate strategy to expand your footprint in the region?
We do plan to expand, and I think a lot of our strategy is to keep building on the universal value we provide to the user. So of course, there will still be some of the trade barriers, and we may not be able to maybe, for example, open e-commerce or peer-to-peer commerce for that matter, or employment. But we do intend to do more, for women outside India, and I think. Also because that's the fundamental nature of building a platform. You don't build a platform only to be restricted by it. And we see that some of the use cases, healthcare, for example, women's health is a very, very universal community. We find very common questions around there. Similarly, use of our helpline, creativity, these are all common factors, and we are working towards making sure that at some point, we're 22 million women today. As we get to 100, we will get to both regional markets and global markets.
Great, thank you. So quick reminder for our audience, please take the poll. We're going to be revealing the results very soon. I'm going to conclude with one question to all of you. So if you had the opportunity to sit down with leaders of South Asia, government officials at a very high level, and you could ask them one policy action that they would take to support women regionally, women entrepreneurs regionally, what would that one ask be? Let's start with you, Maheen. Oh, Maheen, you're muted.
Oops, sorry. So I think the harsh reality is a lot of small, micro, medium-sized companies are simply cash-strapped. So some incredible ideas out there are going to lose momentum and will be closed down because they simply don't have the runway. So I would ask for grants and loans to women entrepreneurs to support them through this period of uncertainty, just so that they can get over to the other side. Because I think they are proven metrics. Women are resilient, they are agile, they adapt quickly, and their businesses will contribute to the workforce in the longer term. So supporting them now will be a clear investment decision which will pay off.
Thank you, Maheen. Ayanti.
Maybe I would ask, to to give a percentage, to create a percentage on all policies for women entrepreneurs across the board, whether it's loans, whether it's grant, or whether bank systems, how it works, whatever, even in the parliament. Of course, it is available in the parliament, but it really doesn't happen. But to have that percentage dedicated for women and to make that path easy to come, even though there's a percentage in the parliament for us. I mean, something I see sometimes because of the struggle, it doesn't happen, and then men just overpower. So, but if there's a percentage, to keep it vacuum, if there are no women in the first year, keep it vacuum, that's okay. But not to fill it with other parties, but always in decision making to create a percentage, especially for women entrepreneurs, to take it on board.
Great. So balanced decision making and representation. Oh, great. Sairi, over to you.
All right. So look, if I'm going to get this chance, first of all, I'm not going to be that polite, and I'm going to ask for more than one. And for sure, look, I think a couple of things. First is, of course, I'm going to make sure the region stops spending on arms and defense and takes all that money and builds capital for every woman in the region. Second, more access to internet. And third, of course, lowering of trade barriers.
All right, that's a great plan. So thank you very much. We're coming to the end of our time together, and I'm not going to attempt to summarize this conversation because it's been incredibly rich. But let me just tease out a few elements that for me have been the most salient. I think we all recognize that there are challenges. Access to finance, we just mentioned, capacity building, trading across borders remains very challenging in this region. Leadership challenging, adapting to these very sudden changes. And then, as we alluded to, balancing business and caregiving, and mostly during this lockdown where many women have had to do everything from home and take care of the children. One thing we've heard is that the internet is really a great equalizer. It creates opportunities for women to bypass traditional trade barriers. It's helped women expand in neighboring countries, and it's helped women expand their entrepreneurial skills and develop flexible careers. And I think really what we're seeing is this boom of remote work, home-based work, in a way that was unimaginable probably a few months ago. But certainly the internet is not an equalizer for all, and we have to be very careful going forward, as many of you highlighted, to bring women into the fold, to give them access to broadband, to mobile, to their own accounts, email accounts and otherwise. So you've mentioned a few areas where you'd like to see some targeted policies on finance, on representation, certainly more internet access and removing trade barriers. And I hope that many are listening to that right now. And I think we've also discussed that there really is a role for regional institutions to support women entrepreneurs and to carry this message forward, and also for the peer-to-peer, the people-to-people, women working together more informally, but really helping to advance their agenda jointly. So with that, let me turn to our poll results. I think you won't be so surprised by the results. So the biggest vote is for access to finance, and you've all mentioned that. It is an important piece of the puzzle. Women do need access to loans, to grants, to equity, and they need the support of financiers. Coming in number 2 is providing training and gender responsive policies. Our third vote goes towards local and regional institutional support, and the fourth vote towards expanding trade and e-commerce in the region. So thank you everyone for taking the time to fill out the poll. That's really helpful data for us. So as I mentioned earlier, we will be hearing now from our World Bank CFO, who served in the region for over 35 years. And she's going to share with us now her personal experience of interacting and supporting women businesses in India. So let's turn to her now for her closing remarks.
Coming back to South Asia now, supporting women entrepreneurship is critical to the region's economic recovery. Reducing gender gaps in employment and entrepreneurship could add 25% to the overall GDP here. From my own experience in the region for over 35 years, I have seen how access to finance as well as gender informed policies can make a difference in supporting women entrepreneurs to thrive domestically and embrace opportunities in the region and beyond. I remember engaging with women borrowers of small and micro enterprises from my early years as branch manager in rural and semi urban areas in India. With small amounts of financial support and some hand holding, these women were able to gradually grow their businesses and better the lives of their families. Activities spanned aquaculture, horticulture, textile handicrafts, food processing, and mini service enterprises. I was happy with the outcomes as these women were quick to adopt improved techniques and also because their track record in repayment was significantly above the average. I can also recall success stories where we supported women led medium enterprises which achieved great success in both services and manufacturing, and in sectors as diverse as providing security services, education, health, and fitness services, sugar and edible oil manufacturing, dairy, garment and carpet exports, and also construction and real estate, to name a few. These women faced hurdles at every stage, but to my mind, the biggest one that they faced was the problem of perception. Women were often seen through the prism of stereotypes who could not understand finances, who were unable to take risks or make sound business decisions, and who needed a man behind them to make them a bankable risk. But these women not only succeeded in overcoming such challenges for themselves, they became the path breakers for other young women in the community. We have come a long way since then. As we can see today, women entrepreneurs are changing the business landscape in South Asia region. Starting and growing a business is a powerful tool for women to overcome poverty and build better lives for themselves, their families, and their communities. But entrepreneurship is just one piece of the puzzle. We are nowhere close to a world where a girl born today has the same opportunities as a boy, where women get paid fairly, and where they can become entrepreneurs, pilots, mathematicians, or engineers if they so choose. The World Bank Group stands ready to support women entrepreneurs globally and in the South Asia region to speed up recovery and continue to make the most of the new opportunities the pandemic has brought. We are committed to helping women reap the benefits of regional integration in South Asia as entrepreneurs, traders, investors, and consumers. At the end, I would only like to say that while a lot has been achieved, there is still much to be done, and everyone in this virtual room can play a role. I am sure we will achieve more as we go ahead and forge forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anshula, for these inspiring words and for demonstrating the World Bank's full commitment to supporting entrepreneurship, in particular in South Asia. So as Anshula says, the challenges to women entrepreneurship remain, including this important perception gap that you described. But what we've also heard today is that there are real opportunities and there are women who are changing the path of prosperity and recovery. And really, I have been so inspired by this conversation today. This region needs more entrepreneurs like you, like the three women we've listened to help drive innovations and economic growth and to support a resilient and inclusive recovery. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today, for our audience, to our three panelists and to Anshula. And there's a whole team of people who I can't read out all of their names, but a huge team that has worked very, very hard to make this event possible. And I'd like to thank them all. The recording will be made available next week on the same page and on our website. And we do invite you to keep the conversation going online by using the hashtag #OneSouthAsia. We run these online conversations once every 2 months, and we look very much forward to having you at our next conversation. With that, let me thank everyone again and conclude this event. Have a good day, a good evening, a good afternoon. Thank you.